Benefits of the Death Penalty by Molly Nadeau.
The following content does contain potentially upsetting content for some listeners. Viewer discretion is advised. The death penalty, also known as capital punishment, has been used in the United States since colonial times. This has always been a controversial topic, some claiming that it's morally wrong to sentence a person to death, regardless of the reasoning. However, there are many benefits in keeping this form of punishment for extreme cases. There are many extreme cases in which the death penalty tends to be considered. The primary type is murder. An example of these crimes come from a quote by the Honorable Paul Castle, who stated, "So enter a ghost, or rather, enter one Kenneth Allen McDuff. McDuff raped, tortured, and murdered several women in the 1990s. The acts of this man led the jury to recommend the death penalty, which was carried out in 1998. This is why the death penalty is such an important option for those who commit horrendous crimes. Before going any further, I am going to define a few words that are commonly used in this video. They are capital punishment, punishment by death; criminal law, law that deals with the punishment of people who commit crime; victim, a person who has been attacked, injured, or killed. As mentioned previously, the death penalty has been used in the United States since colonial times. Over time, the method in which this punishment is carried out has changed dramatically. In colonial America, the most common way of executing a person who has committed a crime was by hanging. Over time, as society changed, so did the method of punishment. This led to the introduction of the electric chair, with potentially sentencing innocent people to death for a crime that they did not commit. The possibility of this is only 4.1% of death row inmates. To begin, I want to discuss the type of crimes that are typically committed that constitutes the potential for the use of capital punishment. These crimes include murder, typically in the first degree, since a crime of passion does not count for the death penalty, and rape. Both crimes can have not only a lasting effect on their victims, but on their families as well. According to author Jan Gorecki, "I'd rather execute a man convicted of having murdered others," concludes Van Dan Hag, "than put the lives of innocents at risk." This statement further proves that there is an understanding among most Americans that some crimes deserve a harsher penalty than others. More example of crimes that usually involve the death penalty to be recommended is the defendant had raped and murdered his victim and afterwards tried to have intercourse with her body. The defendant unnaturally assaulted 2 young boys and then abandoned them in a bay. The defendant raped the mother, killed her husband and 1 small child, and left the other 2 children for dead. These are the illustrative of the crimes for which the death penalty is given, crimes which shock the public and offend all sense of morality, according to Kentucky Law Journal. The harm that these crimes cause is incredibly harmful to society. The Kentucky Law Journal argues for the reasoning as to why we need the death penalty, not only for murder, but for rape as well. The Kentucky Law Journal also emphasizes these situations and how they affect society. From my understanding, there's a need for capital punishment to ensure public safety. As society progresses, there is more of a need for harsher punishment due to more public interaction with our criminal justice system. In addition to this topic, I want to discuss 2 other reasons to support the death penalty. The next topic that I want to discuss is the idea of deterring further crimes from being committed. A serious threat deters from the crime, just as a high price deters from purchasing, according to Hag. To prevent individuals from harming others, there should be an understanding that there could be a potentially awful punishment awaiting you. The death penalty's incapitative benefit comes from preventing the individual murderers who are apprehended and executed from killing again, according to Castle. Preventing those who have previously murdered from murdering again keeps society safe and avoids the potential for another victim. Not allowing an individual to harm another individual is vastly important for public safety. Finally, I'm going to discuss that having the death penalty allows the family of victims to heal. Justice being served is the goal of every trial that happened in the United States. We know that behind the homicide or rape are flesh and blood individuals like Colleen Reed mentioned earlier in this text, Castle. We all know that behind these crimes are actual people with actual families and they deserve justice. To make the system of criminal justice work, uncertainty, injustice, and criminal punishments should be eliminated. Gorecki. By not carrying out punishments for crimes like murder, we show the families that their suffering does not matter and the criminal justice system has failed them. From my point of view, there's a need for more protection for victims' families. We have an over-sensationalized world that sometimes glorifies those who murdered. Furthermore, the death penalty protects the mental health of victims and their family by sealing their chapter tight. In conclusion, to allow for the best form of healing, preventing crimes from happening again, and just understanding what constitutes the death penalty, we must allow for the death penalty to be a possibility if it is needed. Not every situation requires it, and it is not a decision that should be taken lightly, but it is vital to our justice system. I leave you with this final quote from the Honorable Castle. Their moving website, www.murdervictims.com, contains a seemingly endless string of photographs of men and women, boys and girls who all seem full of life before their brutal murders.